Hello and welcome to McKinsey Live. I'm Lucia Rahilly, McKinsey's editorial director and your host for today's event, Redefining the Role of the Tech Officer. Again, the goal of this live webinar series is to facilitate engagement with our experts on our latest research. So please feel free to use the Q&A functionality to ask anything that comes to mind. We have lots of folks here today for this one. It's quite a sizable crowd today, but as always, we will do our best to answer at least a selection of your questions. So today we'll be talking about new research published in a special edition of the McKinsey Quarterly on the future of technology. FYI, this is part of a year-long 60th birthday celebration of the McKinsey Quarterly, and you can subscribe to the digital edition for free on our website, mckinsey.com. Joining us to talk about this research and what we describe in the quarterly as a new dawn for the technology officer are Aamer Baig and Delphine Zurkiya. Aamer is a senior partner who leads McKinsey Technology globally. He helps large enterprise tech organizations run, build, and win like top-performing tech companies do. And he counsels a range of C-suite executives, CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, and so on the broad swath of topics related to tech leadership, management, strategy, delivery, and value creation. Delphine is also a senior partner, and she is a leader specifically in med tech, life sciences, health tech, and technology, specializing in growth, digital, and AI transformations. She's also a member of our McKinsey Technology Council, where she leads our Gen AI initiatives in life sciences and healthcare. Aamer and Delphine, welcome to McKinsey Live.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
So let's start with some context. The explosion of Gen AI into the business landscape is causing enterprise tech officers to fundamentally rethink the way they operate in a variety of ways. But the tech world is always incredibly fast moving. Delphine, talk to us. How did we get here and why is this important now?
Absolutely. So I have to empathize with our chief technology officers because there's definitely a lot of increasing expectation on that role. And that is because of a lot of excitement around AI, but also many other technologies that we've been also talking about in our tech council. There are three main reasons that we've seen this acceleration. The first reason, you see the first number on the left, this is because it's quite large impact. It's impact even if this was half the impact, right? It's still large. And this is what you're seeing here, the 4.4 trillion is what Gen AI can do to boost our global economy. And for reference, this is 15 to 40% more than traditional AI. So this is definitely a technology that's been bursting on the scenes in the last few years where everyone's paying attention, and hence a lot of questions for our CTOs. The second is we've actually seen some pretty phenomenal adoption in our recent McKinsey survey. 65% of enterprises are now using some amount of Gen AI. Why? 90% of the data in our enterprise is unstructured, and this is exactly the technology that can allow us to get access to it. And by the way, this is twice as much as the prior survey. So this is a pretty phenomenal growth. And of course, with it, lots of questions around how to do this right. And then finally, it's not just AI. Cloud, of course, has been at the forefront. It's been enabling some of the AI technology. But it's also a technology that's quite exciting because it's helping boost not just the bottom line, but the top line. And this is not just about cutting costs in IT. This is very much about boosting innovation and allowing to get revenue. And so if you think about those three trends, the CTO is really at the center of that. And of course, many questions, but also a lot of shaping that needs to be done and is asked of the CTO.
Super helpful. So let's move to, you mentioned the economic promise of Gen AI, which is potentially transformative. Delphine, say a little more, if you would, about how AI has been driving this change that tech officers should embrace.
Absolutely. So I'm sure many of you have heard this concept of the fourth industrial revolution. And in an economist term, if you think about sort of the cost of deploying technology, there's almost zero marginal cost. It's still not exactly true for AI, but we're getting there, just like now there's zero marginal cost of computing. Now, one thing to note is though there is 65% of enterprises using Gen AI, we're still seeing that about 3 out of 10 projects are not getting the value that we were hoping for in the enterprise. And one might say it's early, but we also learned from the DNA revolution about 10 years ago that having 1,000 pilots is really not the way to go. And I think we're learning much faster now that it is very, very important for the CTO to step in and help the enterprise really make sense of what is happening. AI is also machine learning, at least Gen AI is, and the machine has to learn with data. And this is really flashing a light on what I think we've been talking about for a while now, which is the need to have a very solid data foundation that exists at the enterprise level. Data that is clean, data that is valid, data that is often packaged in a way that it can be reused. And this is also very much what AI has brought at the forefront. Finally, AI by itself, and I alluded to the failure rate, it's often not the technology that doesn't work. It's really more the people in the process. We're asking people to completely fundamentally change the way they work. And that means reskilling, that means also rethinking processes. And that very much needs to be an enterprise level technology plus the business tackling this issue. So this concept of technology done in a silo and the business applying it is no longer valid, and AI is really forcing this very cross-functional leadership team to look at how do we actually get 10 out of 10 of these projects or use cases to really bring the value that we want to see.
So what I'm hearing you say, at least in part, is that this particular moment is almost a step up opportunity for leaders, but there are these various challenges that they will have to navigate. And what's needed now is clarity on where and how tech leaders should focus their energies and build these new capabilities that you're alluding to, talent and so forth. Aamer, you speak with business leaders every day. Can you share some of what you're hearing from leaders in those conversations?
Of course. First, it's important to recognize that every platform revolution or generational technology has changed the scope of enterprise technology and consequently the role of the CTO, CIO, CDO, the enterprise tech officer. So with that in mind, we like to say generational technologies come with generational career opportunities. As a result, we're extremely bullish about the role of the tech officer going forward. In the last few months, we've spoken with dozens of CEOs, board members, investors, and technology leaders about the evolution of the tech officer role. And it's clear from these conversations and interviews and research that a few shifts are underway, that some have already been made or some in the process of being of happening. So let's go through a few of these. The first shift is to move to be a protector of the enterprise. Move from being just a securer of protector of technology to protecting business resiliency as well. This has to go beyond cybersecurity to ensure protection of revenue and continuity of the business. The second shift involves becoming an operator. Tech has been embedded in a lot of business functions for a period of time, but tech has served operations. Automation and tech is allowing an inordinate number of possibilities in terms of improving service delivery. As a result, these leaders are seeing their role evolve beyond technology and covering a number of adjacent areas like customer experience, like operations, like innovations, and sometimes even strategy. The third is to be an orchestrator of outcomes, not just in terms of delivery of tech. This involves leading digital and AI across business and IT, and involves an evolution of the role from being a technology leader to being a change leader and a people leader. as well. And finally, perhaps the most exciting evolution is to be a builder. Most tech officers have been builders of software and builders of technology. Now there's an opportunity to be a builder of businesses as well. And that requires bringing technology skills as well as business skills and product skills to bear.
Okay, so these are obviously important shifts. Aamer, you've said that what's at stake. I love that phrase used. Generational tech comes with generational career opportunities. So a lot of promise here. Let's get into it a little bit more on each one, starting with the protector role. Tech and AI obviously have brought about tremendous benefits, but at the same time, we do see increasing vulnerabilities as attacks on systems become more sophisticated. What do tech leaders need to know to mitigate these evolving cybersecurity threats and to protect their enterprise successfully?
It's a great question. So it's important to know that cybersecurity and resiliency are not new themes or new topics. They've been around as long as enterprise technology has been around. But the intensity of technology and AI that's being deployed has just increased the surface area. As a result, the scope, scale, and magnitude of both the positive as well as the downside of possible from tech has increased materially. Let's give it a little bit of texture. Cybercrime may end up costing all of us globally as much as 10.5 trillion. That's 10.5 trillion. The scale is mind-boggling. It can come from a variety of sources: nation-state attacks, model hijacking, privacy concerns, what have you. Poorly protected companies are usually in the crosshairs of regulators, investors, insurers, and end up paying big fines. That's what makes being a protector really important and really existential in some cases for the enterprise. The bad news is we believe only about 30% of enterprises are well protected. That means they have best practice cybersecurity and digital trust practices. The good news is there are some proven practices that you can deploy. One is prioritize your critical assets. Not every asset is the same. We think companies can go a long way by looking at the 30% of your enterprise that drives most of your business and really focus on that. Second is a shift in your process and mindset related to security. Move security much earlier on in the process in terms of software development, adopt policy as code practices, and then embed it early in your new products and services. And third, really take digital trust seriously. This involves communicating with customers, looking at your cyber policies related to breach handling, for example, and third-party risk. That will give you a head start in also getting compliant with a lot of global regulations that are coming on board. That's cyber. Now let's look at business resiliency. Why is that important? Downtime is an issue we hear about, but we have not, for the longest time, put a number and quantified the impact of that. Global 2000 companies could lose as many as $400 billion. That's billion with a B, because of outages and system downtime. Okay? That's a huge number, and it's probably not well understood, and it's probably even worse managed. The implication of this is also hitting enterprises in very interesting ways. Some CEOs are getting docked their pay for not having consistently performing systems, and it's also drawing regulatory scrutiny. With the implementation and advancement of tech and even more adoption of AI, we can just expect this to become even more in the forefront. Why do we say that? One, most enterprises have interconnected systems and legacy systems, which means that one issue in one part of the enterprise could affect all of it. So the interconnected nature really makes a difference. Second, many enterprises have really increased the number of third parties that they've used, which also adds to the risk. And third, perhaps the most interesting one here is processes aren't optimized, nor are they automated. As much as 50 to 60% of outages that we've looked at had a process root cause, not a technological root cause, which means that until that is addressed, this will continue being an issue. Again, there is good news here in terms of how you can tackle it. One, tech leaders can take an end-to-end view, which means not just looking at technology, but the entire business function or business process. By taking that holistic view and involving their business partners, they're already taking a step ahead, going a step ahead. Second, technology leaders can start addressing technical debt. We have said in other forums that tech debt is the silent killer of all modernization efforts. This is the tax we all have to pay to redress technical issues or technology issues that we already knew about. In our estimate, about 20 to 40% of IT balance sheets are tech debt versus tech equity. By that, I mean many organizations are probably over-leveraged. And third, we think there's nothing beating regularly testing and scenario planning on incidents, on outages, on continuity of the business. This should involve your business partners and vendors. And if your vendors use other vendors, involve them too.
Super helpful. Okay, now let's turn to the operator role. Aamer, you mentioned that CEOs and boards are increasingly integrating tech into their core business functions. And by extension, we're seeing them expand the mandate of their tech leaders into areas outside tech. Can you share examples of what it looks like when tech executives take on this kind of expanded operator role?
Of course, tech has been automating processes and getting embedded in business functions for a while. Many of the business functions are now looking at tech to generate the next tranche of value. And the value could be significant. Let me just give you a few examples. Generative AI could make administrative tasks 40% more productive, 40%. Automation in the supply chain function could drive productivity by above 50%. And in R&D, AI can speed up innovation by as much as 45%. Looking at these sources of value and the magnitude of value that's possible, CEOs and boards are now looking to their tech officer to take on even more responsibility and play a role in other functions. In fact, 23 out of the Fortune 100 tech officers have taken on an additional responsibility beyond digital and IT, 23%. So we think this trend is going to continue even more. Let's talk about a few specific examples. We've all talked about how AI is becoming more central to strategy. That's perhaps most relevant in information intensive and research intensive enterprises, like life sciences, for example, which Delphine covers quite nicely. One global life sciences company has integrated the CIO and the chief strategy officer roles so that these capabilities can work together to develop an enterprise-wide AI strategy that furthers the business strategy and is in alignment with the rest of the C-suite and has support of the board. Okay. Think about this. The chief technology officer also becoming the head of strategy at a company. The second example, we always known that customer experience gets a real boost through digitization and through great online experiences. Recognizing this, one bank has added customer experience to the role of the CIO. That has led to an increase in digitization as well as an increase in customer satisfaction at this institution. And there are also a number of examples where productivity is important in service operations, that CIOs are taking on responsibilities of service operations, particularly in financial services companies. But in other industries, CIOs are taking responsibility for other corporate functions and shared services, like procurement. So we see examples abound all around us, but they take various different flavors. And we can't be more excited about the CIO stepping in to not just serve operations, but also help take responsibility for delivery of operations as well.
Yeah, it's a super interesting shift. Delphine, let's get you back into the mix. Talk to us about the orchestrator role. In other words, how can tech leaders orchestrate change across the organization to drive strategy and deliver on this value potential we've talked about, which can sometimes be elusive, as you've mentioned?
So I was alluding back to the 1,000 pilots, only about 30% or less being successful. We're now seeing more and more some of our chief technology officers stepping into an orchestrator role. And really the shift here is going from owning technology to owning the end-to-end. This means technology, this means people, this means processes, and ultimately owning the full P&L of what is the project and the impact. When is that most in demand? It is when you have projects, use cases that are going to need the full enterprise and multiple business unit or multiple functions. I'll provide an example that is actually close to my heart and to Aamer's heart, which is Lily, our own Gen AI platform at McKinsey. This is one where 18 months ago we said, we have to innovate on ourselves. We have to rewire the way we work. And we have so much knowledge in the walls of our own company, often very siloed, and we want our consultants to have access to it so that they can really be more efficient in finding information, but also more impact for our clients. To do that, this really needed a village, and our tech organization stepped up in taking the lead in really orchestrating across really a very large group of people to be able to make it come to life. And fast forward now, I think we've all seen the value and more. This has become really truly a platform. This is important to recognize that there are about 6 shifts. We've talked about them a lot in our Rewired research. I might not hit on all of them here for the interest of time, but I'll hit on a few that are very important. The first one is this concept of an operating model, and you're really now operating a team that is a combined team, technology and business. It's a very new way of working, and that is absolutely important. For Lily, we've actually looked back, 50% of our FTEs involved in the project are non-tech, but still being orchestrated by our technology function. Another area that is quite important is this continuous upskilling, both of the technology organization, but of all the users. On the tech side, this is, Aamer alluded to some of the great tools that are coming online to help with productivity of the developer. Well, this meant we had to adopt that. We had to really rewire ourselves and absolutely up the bar on what it means to be current in terms of innovation. Another shift that I've alluded to is data. So data now is no longer just siloed. It needs to be freed. And what that means is you need to start thinking of data as products that can start being reused by different parts of the organization. An example for us at Lily, our private equity practice, did an amazing job at keeping all the transcripts of all the interviews that our consultants had done in an anonymized way, a wealth of information, but no one else had access to it. Well, now through our Lily platform, when I ask questions, I often see a lot of answers that come from the transcript. Now, of course, responsibly, I can go back to the transcript, read through it, make sure it's answering the question I had. This was really pivotal in actually having a lot of our consultants say, oh, I have data too, and I want to bring it on. And we needed to orchestrate that around a data platform that is absolutely owned by this orchestrator role. And finally, I think probably the most important is to be at the table. And Aamer alluded to the role of a chief strategy officer. In this particular case, we needed to set the bar high, and our technology organization actually pushed us to say we can deliver faster, we can deliver bigger. and really set the vision ultimately in partnership with the rest of us, and set the cadence. So that takes quite a bit of orchestration. And in this case, we really owed it to our technology organization to have stepped up there.
Thank you, Delphine. I'm mindful of time, but I do want to touch a little bit on how you see the role of tech officers evolving in the area of product development. This is kind of a nice segue from the Lilly example, but this is the builder role.
That's right. I've alluded to owning a P&L. This is taking it to its limit and recognizing, as Aamer said, we technologists are excited to build products. And the more we can build products to help the enterprise realize the value, the better. And so therefore, a lot of these products are now external products. Whether you're a technology company or not, there is always software embedded in products. And we've seen, again, CTOs now become ultimately responsible for the full P&L of these products. Now, of course, a lot of that is precipitated when there is a need for a lot of technology. A perfect example is e-commerce. I have a life sciences client that recognized the importance initially of the tail, all the SKUs that you want to be able to renew using an e-commerce platform, and ask their technology organization to create that product for them. But very quickly, the technology organization realized through a lot of sensing, because they were analyzing all this data, that you could actually use this platform not just for the renewal, but also to be able to access customer segments that were never accessed before. And that's quite exciting when you can bring all these customer insights in a very sort of advanced way that, again, only you can do with being able to sense things through technology. Another part here that is really important when you build a product is the ability to understand the go-to-market and change the business model. In my example, we needed to sell it in a SaaS way. Often you hear, well, my ERP cannot do SaaS, and then the project dies. Well, guess what? If you're the CTO, you're in charge of the ERP. So you can actually completely challenge that and say, no, we actually are going to think from the beginning, how do we build technology that enables the business model? So again, an example of how as a role, a really important role in leading the thinking on technology can actually help bring these products to market.
Thanks, Delphine. Aamer, we have said a lot in the past 25-ish minutes, and as Delphine expressed at the beginning, tech leaders are people too. They were presumably incredibly busy before, and now this. Any suggestions on how or where to start to begin harnessing more of the promise that tech and Gen AI can offer?
Great. Thank you, Lucia, and really enjoyed hearing Delphine as well. We also got a couple of questions that I will address along the way. So one of the things we have to recognize as we're starting this is most of the tech leaders feel like their job is already quite packed, their plate is full. And some of them are actually not interested in expanding their mandate. So it's important to recognize that. When we interviewed CEOs, tech officers, and members of the board on this topic, and we asked them, tell us in what way did this tech officer expand her mandate? Here are the ideas that they came up with, and it's a synthesis. They said, first of all, it's important to expand the mindset to being a business and people leader rather than just a functional leader. The second thing they said is it's important for this individual to set an aspiration and think about which of these four roles is relevant. Maybe multiple, maybe one, maybe not. That's second. Third, they said, it's important to align with the CEO and also with peers. CEO sponsorship is important, but they also said aligning with peers and getting their support is sometimes ignored and is really important. The fourth, they're very busy, but they said taking on initiative despite that was a difference maker and setting the agenda rather than the agenda being set to them. And then finally, everyone said delivering on your existing commitments is the actual door opener. So flawless execution is really important. So that was one of the questions we got in terms of how do they usually get started. So we thought we'd address that. And with that, let me pause there and turn it over back to you, Lucia.
Great. Thank you, Aamer. Unfortunately, that brings us to time. This has been a fantastic discussion. Thanks again for joining us to talk tech and more, Aamer and Delphine. And as always, it was great to have you. For questions we didn't get to, I would urge folks to subscribe to the digital version of the McKinsey Quarterly for free on our website. Again, you can access the full research article. And you can also find a replay of this in our previous McKinsey Live events at mckinsey.com/live. And please join our next McKinsey Live. It's going to be on how to navigate changing political dynamics. It's obviously a hot topic now. That's at 9 a.m. Eastern on Friday, December 13th. Friday the 13th. Yikes, will something go awry? Join us and find out, speaking of tech. See you there. Have a great day or evening and be well.